Hi, I'm Larry Lieberman. Today on Inside Windows Platform, Shen's going to walk us through new functionality in the Universal Windows Platform around how you can add drag and drop to your UWP application. Now, before we get into that, though, I just want to quickly mention one of the pieces of feedback we got about our managed platform in Windows prior to Windows 10 was that people felt that our managed apps platform was really divided off from the rest of the operating system, that you got a locked experience that didn't integrate with the operating system or with other applications. And so one of the ways, and we are seeking to address this in Windows 10, and one of the ways we're doing that is through addition of functionality like drag and drop.
Yeah, so it's kind of a new feature for Windows 10. It's kind of neat as well. And I'll probably just walk through a quick sample and let's have a look at what we can do.
This used to be really kind of tricky in the past.
Yeah, right? so we've taken away all that code that you'd normally write. And actually the code you write is based on your preferences as an application developer about what you would like your application to do based on certain things being dragged and dropped over bits and pieces.
So what are we looking at here?
So here is my application. You can see here it's got 3 columns, unorganized, like and dislike. And put simply, it's just a way for me to organize photos. So the one way that I like to import photos is normally via drag and drop. So here you can see I've opened up a folder with a couple of photos in.
This is a regular Explorer folder.
Yeah, regular Explorer folder. You can see those pictures should look mildly familiar. So you can see here what I'm doing is I'm dragging it over the unorganized, and you can see I've got a copy tooltip telling me, hey, you know what, you could drop it here if you like. But actually, if I dropped it on dislike or like, you'll see actually I'm getting like the usual red circle saying that actually this is not a drop zone for this type of information. So I'm going to drop it into unorganized. And you can see there, so let's minimize that. You can see there that actually my pictures have now appeared. Now the idea here is I can now drag from within inside the application now into the other columns, because now it's okay to move them because it's within the app. So in this case, I might say, I don't know.
Those are rules that you've set up, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have made this differently, but what you're demonstrating here is the ability to have this type of logic control the UI.
Correct. It's total flexibility on how you want to control the interaction, between various drag and drop items. And they don't have to be images. This is the cool thing. So I could have dragged maybe a text file, and if I was an application that did analytics, maybe dragging that comma-separated text file would then parse and actually draw up nice graphs and charts and things like that. If I wanted to, don't forget Explorer is an application, but so are other UWPs also applications, so like the Photos app,
right,
or other third-party applications. You could drag from those, providing they obviously allow their drag and drop, into your own, so I can, go to various states.
So why don't you show us what
Let's have a look at the code, yeah. So let's have a quick look at the XAML, because I think that's always a great place to start. So I'm going to show you here. Let's drop this back so we get a bit more space. So what I'm going to show you here is basically 3 list views that we have in place. And you can see here's the first list view. So this is the unorganized column. Then we have the likes column, which is the second list view. And then we have the third column, which is the dislikes list view. You'll see that actually all 3 of them have some common properties. The allow drop is set to true.
Yep.
This is basically just saying, hey, you know what? I'm a place where you can drop stuff. It's a pretty simple one. Then the other one is drag over. So the reason why we do drag over is to sort of do that limitation saying, hey, I'm a place where you can copy to, or I'm a place where you can move to. So if I have
So you're pointing to an event there.
Yeah, exactly. So if I do a quick peek here, you can see that I'm actually setting a data package operation as copy. So I'm saying, hey, you know what? The event args, the accepted operation for this particular drag is copy. And then what we'll do is let's go and look and see what the drag over is on the other ones. It's a good peak definition. I love this feature. It's great. So you can see here, actually, what I'm doing is I'm saying, if the format of information is text, and we'll talk a bit more about this later on, but if it's text, then I want to allow a move. And if it's not, actually, I don't want to allow a drag operation. So what happens here is when I dragged from Explorer onto these columns and I got the red circle, that's essentially, it's going through this code saying, is it text? No, it's not actually. This is a storage item. Therefore, actually don't allow anything. Obviously, you can make your code more and more robust, so you can do more fancy checks. But for demo purposes, we're keeping it kind of simple. So the next one is the drop event. So if we have a look at the drop event. And you can see here that actually we do something kind of interesting. So the first thing actually when you have a drop event is you want to check to make sure that the data that's been dropped, even though you have the drag over, you should always do this check, just to see, actually, is it a storage item? I know in this case it's going to be a storage item because it's coming from the shell, but I could also check for other things like maybe text, RTF, HTML, various different formats. Then you can see here what I do is now I know that the item coming through is a storage item. I basically get storage item async. Then from there I load up the content from that storage item. So notice here that I do storage items, it's a plural.
Right.
Because technically I could have dragged and dropped multiple items. So you saw when I did my
think you
initial
did,
drag,
actually.
I dragged 2 images, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm going through all the storage items that were dragged and dropped. And in this case, I'm creating a new bitmap image. I'm setting the source by reading, the contents from the storage item. And this is what I do slightly different here. So because it's a list view, this list view is actually data bound to
I saw that.
an observable collection of my item. So what I do is to add items into that collection, I just create a new my item, and then I generate an ID. This is just a unique identifier for me to then work out, later on when I'm doing a drag, which items are being dragged. And then I just set the image property. It's pretty simple. And then I just add it to the collection.
Got it.
So you can see here that actually if I look at the...
And that's where you're bound to my items.
Correct.
Item source.
Yeah, correct. So if I go to the definition, you can see here that what I've got is a very simple image, and I'm just binding to that image property on that my item
And you're using
collection.
Xbind too. which
Yeah,
is-
yeah. Get the performance in, why not? So that's the very basics of a drop from Explorer into your application. But what about now that I've got my images into the application? What I want to do is then from there do a drag and drop from one list view to another. So again, I'll go to the drop event. And you can see here that essentially what I do is, actually let's start with this one, the on drag item started change. So what this is saying is on the unorganized list view, I'm saying, well, actually, I want to allow the can drag items. So this is saying anything within that list view can now be moved around. And then from there, I'm going to wire up the drag item starting event to the unorganized list view.
So that's where you'll actually consume the. You'll
Yeah.
identify the. pointer
Yeah,
to the-
exactly. So here what I'm saying is actually find all the items that have been selected. So items actually gives you, again, a list of items that have been selected.
Right.
I cast them to my items because I know the type. And then I do a very simple thing. I just pull back the IDs of these particular items because I've made the choice that actually I want to pass just the IDs and I just want to pass the reference rather than the whole
And
image
you're sending
object.
this as a string. That's
This is just a
interesting.
string, yeah, because actually I want to keep it very lightweight. It could be that maybe later on in my application I end up filling out this object and it gets quite heavy to move around. So I've
Sure.
decided, why don't I just keep a simple
Move
text.
everything to strings.
Yeah, exactly. So I grab the text and I just set, so you'll see here that in the data package what I do is I set the data to the value of a text, string.
And that's why you enable text dropping.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it. So that's how you restricted it.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm just passing IDs. And then again, I just say that the request operation that I would like this particular interaction to have is move. So now if I go down and I look at the list view, so you can see here this was the restriction. So now I'm saying, hey, if your text, in this case my IDs for my images, then I'm have to accept to move. So now let's look what happens when I release the mouse over one of these list views. So again, I do my standard checking. I go to the data view in the data event args, and I just check to see if it contains a standard data format of text. And again, this is an enumeration, so there's quite a few there. And then simply I get the text using the async call from the data view. And then because I had a comma separated string, because I could drag multiple items, I just split it apart again.
Got it.
And then I work out which, in this case, I was using the same event for both list views. So all I just do is I just do a check to see what the backing observable collection is of the list view I've dropped onto. And then quite simply, I do this. So I say, okay, well, in the root collection, which is the one on the left, where I have all my items, I just search for the item with the ID that was passed along. And then I add that item to the list view that I'm dropping to, and then I just remove it from the original list.
This is a really clever little piece of code here. I mean, as
Yeah.
usual, your code samples demonstrate enterprise grade,
Yeah.
cleverness. So clearly, being able to drag and drop within an application is an important scenario.
Correct.
And what you've shown here is a couple of different easy ways to transform that data and then consume it within the application.
Yeah,
as well as from the shell itself.
Correct, and I'm hoping like more and more people use these sort of similar functionalities and actually find it a great way to manipulate data as well as they bring it into their application and even possibly even out of their application too. There's nothing stopping me from actually saying that actually when I drag this particular, like maybe chart or something out of my application, when it leaves the application, it becomes like, a comma-separated file like we've done here. So another application can then consume it in a very different way. But the nice thing is, with users having more and more touchscreens and mouse and keyboard, it's a great interaction to have.
So you've posted this?
Yeah, so this is on my blog, so you can check it out at shenshouhan.com, and all the sources on GitHub too.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of Inside Windows Platform. Again, drag and drop, incredibly useful functionality that people are familiar with from a long time that can be leveraged to add some powerful scenarios to your own applications. For Inside Windows Platform, this is Larry Lieberman. We'll talk to you again next time with Shen Chauhan.
Thank you very much.